Incredibles 2 is the long-awaited return of the Parr family to the big screen. After a 14-year absence, which is a bit long considering we got 3 Cars movies in that time, Brad Bird returns to write and direct the second film and infuses some of the more mature animated storytelling that he picked up making Ratatouille, as well as beefing up some of the action set pieces, which he would have learned from directing the masterful Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. The movie features much of the cast returning from the first movie like Holly Hunter and Samuel L. Jackson, while bringing in some new faces like Bob Odenkirk and Catherine Keener, with the focus this time being about bringing the superheroes back into the spotlight after they'd previously been made illegal. The story is actually much more intricate and layered this time around, where in the first movie you still had a pretty straightforward superhero flick that loved and was honouring the golden and silver age of superheroes, while also deconstructing superheroes from that time period, where the heroes you looked up to aren't exactly what you expected them to be. This movie still keeps some of the essence from that first movie, but brings it into a far more mature realm, where I have no doubt that a lot of the dialogue in this movie is just going to go straight over kids' heads, which isn't all too bad as there's a lot of action and humour to keep the little ones busy and interested. The movie, as has been mentioned by Brad Bird and the cast, picks up exactly where the first movie ends, which is just all anyone who's waited 14 years to see this movie has wanted. It's very clear that a lot of love and care has gone into this film to make sure that it absolutely meets expectations, and it for sure does, even if it doesn't quite top the original for me, which is fine. The first film is arguably one of Pixar's best films. Incredibles 2 captures the Parr family just the way you remember them, and in the first half of the movie lets you spend a lot of time just getting to know them and see them do menial and day-to-day jobs outside of all the superheroics. As a lot of the trailers have shown, much of this movie is focused on Elastigirl, or Helen, Holly Hunter's character, where, and this isn't giving anything away in the film, is recruited to try and bring superheroes back into the spotlight and make them legal once again. This causes a bit of a rift in the family, as Mr. Incredible has always been the one to go to work and be Mr. Incredible, while Helen looked after the kids at home. So instead this time the mum is allowed to go off and do the superheroics, while dad stays at home to take care of the family, which not only creates some very funny scenes of Mr. Incredible trying his best to take care of his superpowered kids, but adds a very interesting layer to him. As you can see, he's desperately been wanting to get back into being a superhero full time, and is very clearly jealous of his wife. This sudden displacement of power changes him, as he is forced to adapt to his new position as the stay-at-home dad. Again, things like this will go completely over kids' heads, as they laugh at dad trying to do math homework and look after the adorable Jack Jack the baby who is coming into his new powers. This movie does feel more like Elastigirl's movie, however, as the majority of this film's superheroics is dedicated to her, as we watch her partake in a number of absolutely stunning action set pieces that for me top the action that we got in the first movie. If there's one thing that this movie does better than the original, it is absolutely the action set pieces, where at times it feels like Brad Bird has taken a few cues from Steven Spielberg in how to block and create tension and suspense in action scenes. All of the action is exciting and every set piece is designed with a different visual aesthetic in mind. So every time that things are getting exciting, you'll notice things are changed up from before. Whether it's a different color palette or look, or taking place at different times and locations, there's always something new to experience with the action, which I really appreciated. Although there is one sequence that features a strobe-like effect, which I imagine may cause some issues with some viewers, as even I had to close my eyes a few times during that sequence. Very visually interesting sequence, but it just might be a bit too intense for some. The rest of the family do come more into the action towards the end, so fans wanting to see the Incredibles all in action together might be a bit disappointed that they have to wait a little while. What we do get is more time spent developing these characters, where each of the family members has an arc throughout the movie. For the kids, these are smaller, more simplified arcs. In fact, out of everyone, Dash probably has the least amount of time dedicated to him and is used more for the comedic moments. Elastigirl again absolutely has the most development given to her, where she is trying to come to terms with what she wants out of herself and managing her own responsibilities to her family. But maybe she can be comfortable knowing that her family isn't right in front of her at all times and can do things that she wants to do. The movie does take a bit of a stumble in the villain department with Screenslaver, who is a considerable step down from Syndrome in the first movie, who had a much stronger connection to our heroes. There is an attempt to do something more intricate and layered with Screenslaver, who, don't get me wrong, offers great visual flair and attention to detail, but they try this thing with the character that a lot of people I think are going to see coming a mile away. And once it happens, it pretty quickly undermines the character, where you're just waiting to see how their plan is going to become unraveled. It happens in spectacular fashion, and visually is a very interesting character to watch, but Screenslaver unfortunately becomes a very forgettable villain. The villain problem also extends, I think, into the emotion of the movie as well, which doesn't have that usual sincerity or touch that other Pixar movies seem to achieve so effortlessly. You'll have an entertaining time, but you probably won't get that emotional kick in the gut that you get with Coco or Toy Story 3. The short film Bow that plays in front of Incredibles 2 has all the emotional punches, however, so be prepared for some waterworks there. There are some great appearances though from other favourite characters like Edna, voiced again by Brad Bird, who's used just perfectly in a moment with Jack Jack that you will absolutely want to see. And it goes without saying the wizards at Pixar have again pushed what they can do with animation, which as I mentioned is most apparent in the set pieces. Michael Giacchino returns again to do the score for more of that 40s superhero flair that again makes you feel like you're watching an old Flash or Superman short that just makes everything feel as classy and exciting as the first movie. Incredibles 2 is a worthy follow-up to the original that we've waited 14 years for. Yes, it doesn't quite reach any of the emotional highs that you usually expect from Pixar, and definitely stumbles in the villain department, but you'd be damned if you still don't have an entertaining time with the film. Incredibles 2 gets an 8.5 out of 10 from me. Guys, I hope you like this review. If you want to see more reviews just like this one, stay right here for your Mono Fix. Bye guys.